The soul of America versus some South America joke that pretends to be president. We got to cover it, but it's over.
Welcome to this week's Wacky Moments of Liberal Expression. Now, this was a very important week. It was the week that the Trump presidency came to an end. Well, for the folks over at MSNBC, as they claimed it was over on Tuesday.
For me, I kind of move on knowing this presidency in many ways is over. And we're just getting through it. The soul of America versus some South America joke that pretends to be president. We got to cover it, but it's over.
Well, you know, it's essentially over, but they'll still cover him, and cover him they did, especially after an anonymous letter that bashed the president was printed in the New York Times. Because to MSNBC, fighting Trump is just like fighting communism.
Well, it could be the most powerful anonymous letter since American diplomat George Kennan published his historic telegram outlining the Cold War strategy of containment. But rather than attempting to contain a foreign power, the author in this case makes clear that the objective now is to contain the worst impulses of a sitting U.S. president.
So to the liberal media, there's only one proper response to this letter that was written, well, by someone, we don't know who or what their position is, but there's only one proper response, and that is to do what they've been telling you to do since January of 2017.
What we need to decide in this moment is, what do we do next? Is it the 25th Amendment? Is it making sure that the House becomes a Democratic majority in November so that we can then perhaps even talk seriously about the possibility of starting an impeachment process?
Wow, you know, that was so unique and different from anything I've ever heard from MSNBC. Well, here's something that's really different. Now, the liberal media was discussing how extremely respectful the Senate Democrats were at the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation hearing.
Democrats were extremely respectful today in the hearing. They were simply asking for, under regular order, please.
Oh, yes, please.
Mr. Chairman, let's delay, let's get the documents. We feel like we don't have enough information to be able to effectively advise and consent on this issue.
Come on. Remember on day one of the hearing alone, I guess this is respectful?
I welcome everyone to this confirmation hearing on the nomination of
Mr. Chairman.
Brett Kavanaugh.
Mr. Chairman.
To serve as Associate Justice.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to be recognized for a question before we proceed.
Exciting day for all of you here. Mr. Chairman. And you're rightly proud.
Mr. Chairman, if we cannot be recognized, I move to adjourn.
The American people.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adjourn.
Hear directly from Judge Kavanaugh later this afternoon.
And as the week progressed, it got more ridiculous, as did the liberal media coverage of the confirmation hearing.
Democratic senators joining the resistance, drowning out the protesters with their own dramatic stand. Senator Cory Booker apparently flouting Senate rules by releasing confidential emails from Judge Kavanaugh's years inside the George W. Bush White House, one dealing with the issue of racial profiling post 9/11.
I openly invite and accept the consequences of my team releasing that email right now.
Booker's fellow Democrats vowing to stand with him.
Count me in. I want to be part of this process.
Count me in, too.
The Democrats facing possible expulsion for breaking Senate rules.
Of course, those documents have been cleared for release already, and ABC's Terry Moran didn't mention the contents of the emails, which show the judge opposed using race or national origin for law enforcement and airport security, leaving the Booker bombshell essentially a dud. But leaving out that type of information that hurts their narrative is what the liberal media does, which brings us to this week's moment of Katie Tur's tears, where once again Trump supporters upset her so deeply.
I was in Miami when Donald Trump was campaigning, and I was talking to a gentleman who was telling me why he liked Donald Trump, and he said he's going to be really tough on immigration. He's going to deport all of these undocumented immigrants. And I said, you know, President Obama has deported more undocumented immigrants than anybody. I mean, he's done it more. And the guy looked me in the face and said, you're not true. That's not true. You're lying. And I said, no. There are stats to prove it. What stats? And I pulled them up on my phone. Pew stats. He looked at the empirical evidence and said, I don't believe that.
Well, maybe because they shouldn't, Katie. Because towards the end of the George W. Bush administration, the government began counting illegal immigrants who were caught near the border and deported without trial. Those cases had previously not been included in the official numbers. Take those numbers away, the number of deportations actually decreased significantly under Obama. But there's no need to mention that, right, Katie?
And I said, you know, President Obama has deported more undocumented immigrants than anybody. I mean, he's done it more. And the guy looked me in the face and said, you're not true. That's not true. You're lying.
She is so distressed. That wraps us up for now. I'm Eric Shiner for MRC TV. I'll see you again with more media wackiness next week.